Hey everybody, so I am here in Oslo, Norway for a little QT with God, and I was so excited to get here because my first day of travel was an experience all by itself. And it was full of what I would call many behaviors, beginning with the Minneapolis airport. So I decided to go to the Holy Land food truck while I was there to get a little falafel wrap before I got on the plane. So I ordered one, smashed it, and then decided to get another one for the actual plane ride because that was what the first one was for, but you know how that goes. Y'all, that blue falafel wrap was delicious, right? So I'm beginning to get the second one, and I'm walking back, starting to walk back towards the gate or the terminal. And as I'm walking back, I hear on the loud intercom that blares all throughout the airport, Brianna Hill, please report to gate G4. And I'm like, so I book it back, right? And I make it like north side mad dash run, make it back to the gate, and I make it on the plane. And it was like me and one other person who had to have our names called. And I was like, oh my gosh, praise the Lord that I made it. But whew, that was a close call. I didn't know my time was that short. That falafel wrap was a little too good. So I get to Oslo safe and sound, and flight was well. And I get on the train to get to the residence where I'm staying at. And it was all good to go. I get off the train, and then my GPS signal stops working. And I was like, okay. So I had to remember by memory from a year and a half ago where this house was at. And I kind of figured the direction, but mind you, I was going in the right direction. I eventually found the house, but it was uphill, and I was carrying 2 bags of luggage. So I got there nice and sweaty, but I got there with no GPS at the end of my trip. But I found the house, got there safe and sound, and things were good. And then later on that night, right, so I had set up some events for some social events to go to while I'm here because my whole mission was to make connections, shake hands, and make some plans. Excuse me. And then so I met with an improv group and played with them for a little bit. Excuse me, that was fun. And then I attended a comedy show and met some new cool people. And then I went back home. So I get off the tram, and my directions were still working, thank the Lord. So I end up getting off, and I zigzag through this really pretty little town, and I'm walking to the address. I'm like, maybe this is the back road. You know, I didn't know what was going on. And I get to the address, and I look at the house, and I'm like, this ain't even the area that I'm supposed to be in. Mind you, my Google now stopped working again because I had to look up the right address. The street name was 3 letters off from the one that I had accidentally selected, but I was about a mile west of where I needed to go. And it's 11:30 at night. Lights are off. People are asleep. And I'm like, what am I supposed to do? I'm like, oh my gosh. Mind you, I had not called Sprint to let them know I was traveling internationally, another oopsie that I made. So I wasn't able to make any phone calls to my cousin here, or text or do anything. So first I just laugh at myself, then I blinked about 10 times to try to figure out what I was going to do. Because where I just came from, I don't recall, because remember, I zigzagged through the alleys. So I said a little prayer, and I said, Lord, I don't know where I'm at, but you know exactly where I'm at. And I'm asking for your divine assistance, because we've been talking about that at church lately. And so I said, please send me an angel to get me back home, because I am literally lost in the middle of Norway with no GPS, no signal, no nothing, and people are asleep. So I begin walking, and a car drives past, and they keep driving. They don't stop. And I keep walking, and then I see like this dorm-like residence, right? And I'm like, oh, lights are on, and I hear this TV blaring out this person's window. So I approach the door, I knock, ring the doorbell, and I knock and ring the doorbell, and I knock and ring the doorbell, and I knock and ring the doorbell, and nobody comes to the door. I don't even hear anybody's voice. So I'm like, maybe they're asleep, maybe they're upstairs. This TV is loud, like I can hear what you're watching. I could probably like stick my head in the window and be all rude, but I'm not trying to be a creeper in Norway, right? So I end up going around to the next door, and they also had their lights on. So this nice young lady opens the door, and I tell her what happened, and I'm just like, hey, can you help me get back to the tram, or even if I could walk back, how far is it? She's like, well, it's about a 30-minute walk. And I was like, not in the dark. It's not going to happen today. And she's like, oh, no, okay. So she ends up looking the location up on Google, and is like, okay, this is where you have to go. And I'm like, just get me back to the tram and I'll be fine. So she's like, cool. Walk down the street, and then it's going to go downhill, and then you'll see the tram. And I'm like, cool. So I go down the street, follow her directions, and I get down the road and I get to a main road and there's no tram. And I'm like, I can either go left or I can go right. And again, my GPS still isn't working. So I'm like, what is going on? So I was like, okay, there's more lights to the left. So I think I'm going to go, to the right. So I've decided to go right to see if the tram was that way. So I cross the street, start to go right, and I hear a train in the background. I'm like, okay, they're over in that direction. I pray I'm going the right way. So I end up getting there. I make it to the train station. I'm like, okay, I'm there, and I see a man there. And so I go right up to him because I'm hot, I'm tired, I'm trying to hurry up because, mind you, the train is coming at a certain time. So I get there, and I'm like, whew. I said, hey, do you know where I need to go, which station I need to get off at, or do you know where this is because I'm lost? And he's like, oh, yeah, no problem. He said, I'm actually the tram conductor, so I'll tell you exactly where to get off. And I'm like, praise his name, raise the roof, hallelujah. So I eventually safely make it home. And later on that evening, that night, actually, I tell my baby brother about my behaviors from the day. And he knows me very well and my behaviors and my isms and all that. So he's like, what's up with you, sis, getting all lost and all this stuff in one day? Like, what's going on? And I'm just giggling and I'm like, I don't know. And he pauses and he says, maybe you're supposed to get lost. In your mind, you know where you're supposed to be, but you need to explore because there might be something that you need to see. And I was like, wow, like this little 20-year-old just like smacked me in the face with some wisdom right now. And I'm like, okay, that had to be from the Lord. And so now as I'm processing, I'm like, yeah, this whole trip has actually been about getting lost with the Lord. And because I've successfully goofed up like every day I've traveled here, I've either went down the wrong street, on the wrong side of the track to get on the train or the bus, or ended up, not getting directions from somebody who I asked because they were being rude or whatever it was. I had made so many mistakes in these last couple of days. And so now, again, it's not just like I had one day of goof, but it's like every day I've been making these little simple mistakes that I didn't really need to make. And it's not really like me, at least that's not how I see myself, making those kinds of mistakes. So I began to question if I was just not being myself, or just not paying attention, or am I really supposed to be here and whatnot. So while I was eating this fabulous Norwegian waffle, which are savory here, by the way, and they're really good. I was in earshot of the owner who was talking to someone else. And she says, you are in the right place at the right time, honey. And she's talking to someone else, not to me, but I ate that up like she was speaking directly to me, right? And so that when that happened, it settled me down a lot about all of the mistakes I had been making. And I share this with you tonight because one, the Lord wants me to, and two is for you to know that there are times in your life when you are making mistake after mistake after mistake after mistake, and you begin to wonder if you are doing what you're supposed to be doing, if something's wrong with you, if God is really in this thing or this situation, or is it just you doing your own thing and just not getting it together, whatever the case may be. I wanted you to share with you that God is right there with you in your mistake. Okay. Now your mistake may be small, something you said, did, or didn't do, or maybe something major, something you said, did, or didn't do. Either way, God can locate you in the middle of your mess and redirect you to the right spot. And I believe God actually wants us to make mistakes, not like intentional foolish mistakes just to be foolish, but I do believe he allows us to make mistakes to remind us that we are not perfect, okay, and that we don't really have it all together, to remind us that we need him at all times, and to remind us that he has our backs. I mean, I got lost in Oslo, Norway with no GPS at 11:30 p.m. my first night, and no service actually either at 11:30 at night. So if he can get me in touch with the train or tram driver who happened to be on a shift change at the exact time that I showed up, then I'm sure he can help you with whatever mistake you have made, whether big or small. It doesn't matter. God can handle it. Okay. See, even with this mistake that I made, and even with all the mistakes I have made on this trip, including waking up extremely late because of jet lag, wasting the whole day. Let me tell you about that. I was still in the right place at the right time. So you can call it your valley of mistakes, or maybe your season of saying I'm sorry, but you are still in the right place at the right time. So don't give up on yourself, because God's not going to give up on you. Just ask him for some divine assistance, and he will help you with your divine mistakes. Okay. So I just want to share that with you tonight, to say grace and peace to you, and God wills. Peace out.